Let's take a trip back into history and learn about the old mill and how it continues to be a legacy for local communities as well as around the world.
This mill was built in 1931 to 1933. It was completed in 1933. And the way it got started is Justin Matthews is a builder of this area. He was developing this whole part of North Little Rock, and a problem arose because 1931 was obviously part of the Depression at the end of it. And so he needed to draw people out here to be buying property and houses and so forth. So he took what he considered was the worst land that was out here, where he couldn't build a house anyway, and he built the mill. And he designed it as a tribute to the pioneers of Arkansas that were moving into this area. It would have been what would have occurred back in the early 1800s up to the 1831 time frame. And he thought a mill would be a great tribute to them and what they did and how they were putting things out here. So what he did is he had some of his engineers design the whole park, and then he started hiring people to do the work. And one of the greatest people that he hired was Dionisio Rodriguez. He was an artist out of Mexico, and he did most of the features that we're going to see today, the bridges, the mill building itself. It looks very, very natural in that that's the way it was, but this was never a working mill. None of the things that are out here that look like fallen trees or wouldn't work, none of them are real. They're all made by Dionisio Rodriguez out of cement.
Dionisio Rodriguez, the artist who did all of this wonderful concrete work, which is sometimes called El Trabajo, or it's also a French name that a lot of people use for it, but did not speak English. I just thought he was a very, very interesting character. He was a short man who bought a new car every year. He always wore a suit and tie when he worked, and he did his mixtures in the trunk of his car. And he kind of had a tent that he would put up over the trunk. And if anybody came near, he would slam the trunk down because he didn't want anybody to know his formula. Now, Dionisio Rodriguez was quoted saying that he felt the old mill was the work he was most proud of. Probably the biggest claim to fame at the old mill, and it's pretty much what you see right behind me. It was in the opening scenes of Gone with the Wind for just a few seconds, and I have heard and read many times that this is the only place still standing that was in Gone with the Wind. Now, I don't know that for a fact. But then National Geographic came here and filmed it in 1946, and it was featured in their March 1946 issue. So those are, two claims to fame, but I believe it's internationally known, probably because of the Gone with the Wind connection. The mill building itself was designed by the staff architect on Justin Matthews' company. His name was Frank Carmine. It's built out of native stone. There was a quarry in the neighborhood, in the Park Hill neighborhood and close to here, that this material came from, but the building itself was the vision of Frank Carmine, the architect.
As we're coming into the old mill here, it's a very interesting part of the park, and it's the center of it, of course. But you'll see there's a lot of detail in here. Dionisio Rodriguez put things in like a place to hang your coat as you were coming in. You will see things like down here, it's a fake cabinet underneath there, probably where they would have kept the corn squeezins as they were sitting around here and having a drink or two on the way in. This is what's left of an old mill, and this is truly wood. All the rest of it is fake wood, but this is the wood that would have gone on it. This would have come out of a mill that was back in those times. The Cagle family owned a mill, and that's where this came from. You will also see, if we can look over this way a little bit, the wheel that would have been doing the grinding on it. Those came from France. They made the best mill wheels. And these lines through there, that's the picking lines. Different wheels will have different depths and shapes to it, and that's what would determine whether the mill would be ground down into a fine mill or into a more coarse mill. There's a lot of things in here too that really show the detail that was put in. If you'll look up here, this is where they made things fit by putting boards underneath it, things that would be holding it up in here. This is what you would have seen in a real mill back in the 1800s. There's a stairway going up to the upstairs. The way it's held up is it used the Y of a large branch to hold it up. That's easier than building anything else. You'll see that the uprights, the rail holders up here, where you put even a spike in there, you'll see the split in the wood. That is very typical. Also, you see all these little holes. Those are holes that were made by insects. Not really, because insects don't eat stone, but it's the things that Dionisio Rodriguez put into the mill itself. One of the things that we want to invite you to do is come back. This is January. It's cold out here right now. Things aren't blooming as much. How about if we come back in like early April and get a look at what the master gardeners do to this place so it doesn't look abandoned, so it looks like it is one of the most beautiful places in the world. So please come on back.